I was sitting here working on a piece of writing, and I was reminded that I've spent a long time as a writer and as a journalist and as an author. And sometimes I forget about that. Sometimes I forget in the middle of the night when I'm working on everything else other than the things I love. I remember that I've written so much stuff in my life, and sometimes I bump into it on the internet in the middle of the night at 3 in the morning. And I just remembered that I wrote all of those articles at the beginning of summer about U2. And one of them in particular was my favorite. I think I wrote six articles. They were roughly 3,000 words each, and it was covering the period of U2, of when they came to America up until about Pop, right? And the last one, or the second to the last one, talks directly about the album Pop and how I try to reframe it in a very clear narrative that they should have titled that album Hymnal. And I give you a lot of evidence for the case, and I give you a lot of evidence that that album probably was supposed to be something different, but it ended up being somebody's last minute idea of, hey, we need to make this thing about discotheque and YMCA and Mirrorball, and it'll be cool. We can dress up in suits, and Bono, you can put this thing on with these fake muscles, and Edge could be a cowboy. It'll be funny. And it didn't land very well on people, because the end of the millennia was a really difficult time for a lot of people, and I don't think that they were ready for that nor aware of it. And it didn't really hit people until later. It didn't sit in the public space how much people were hurting at the end of the millennia until after it happened, right? And there was this kind of gross excess, this gross kind of fake bubble excess that was happening at the time. And it kind of like put a veneer over everybody's pain. And, you two were pretty good about connecting into whatever the emotional zeitgeist was at the time. And I firmly contend, and I stand on the belief, that they did touch and connect into the zeitgeist of the moment with that album Pop. But the way that it got produced in post, and the way that whoever made those decisions about this is what it's going to look like, they were just, it was like the emotional disconnect. Cords all got unplugged at the switchboard. Like they made it halfway and then said, oh no, we got to pull back. And I don't know if that was a fear because of, what happened with Rattle and Hum. I don't know if it was a fear of anything else, or it was just midlife, right? Because that was those guys' midlife. But I wrote this article that was like, I don't know, 3,500 words, and it's probably the most, I don't want to say personal, but it was the most emotional thing I think I've ever written in 3,500 words. And I wrote it because I was burned out from spring semester. I was burned out from my child and adolescent and crisis and trauma classes, where it was a lot of deep material and a lot of soul searching, and had to really spend time on that material. And I was thankful for my professors that I had, because some of the people that were instructing me with that stuff were some of the people that literally wrote the book on it, and they're some of the best in the world. And I'm still processing it over summer. So I'm still sitting here in my pajamas at 3 a.m, staying up late, wondering, how am I going to incorporate the things that I've learned into my life to be of value and be of service to others in that regard, right? And then I stumbled across this article, and it's called Hymnal, U2's Last Testament at the End of the Millennium. And I was bored. I was finishing up my cup of tea, and I read it. And I just had the reality that, one, when I write stuff, I try to get as far away from it as possible. And I'm not someone that you'll see on here that is always like promoting their writing. Like, hey, I'm a writer. Here's my writing. Here's a link to my stuff. Here's a link to my Patreon. Here's my Amazon. Yours truly that's not my thing. I've thought about trying to make a few ads on my Greyhound book because people ask me about that book all the time on here. Hey, what book of yours should I read? And I'm like, yeah, just read Greyhound. And, you know, I had a thought like maybe I could piss off my publisher. And they would have to deal with me selling books again, like having higher numbers than normal, because the thing always sells. But if I got a whole bunch of higher numbers than normal, they would not like it. And there's a lot of reasons beyond that. You know, it's not about them making money. It's about how the algorithms run in their marketing. And if I qualify for some of that marketing, if I qualify for some of the marketing, they have to give it to me. It's kind of part of the contract. So I have thought about showing you my book and making it linkable just to mess with them, because trust me, I'm not making that much money per copy. So it would just be to make them kind of like, Urgh. And it's Jeff Bezos and crew, by the way, just in case if you wanted to know who my publisher was. It was Amazon Publishing, and not the self-publishing arm of them, but the real publishing house that they operate. But yeah, I'm sitting here having a cup of tea, eating whatever this is, chocolate chip with sea salt granola clusters. Wow, at 3 in the morning. That's a movie called Until the End of the World, probably the most beautiful movie you've never seen. And you know, every once in a while I think about some of these things I've written, like that YouTube article, and there's 6 of them. And I put a lot of time and effort in, was just to unplug from school. And now I got like 10 days and I go back. And in about 10 days, my whole life is going to change, because I'm going to be a counselor from, 10 days until the day I die. And it's okay, because that's what I've been in school for the last 8 years for. And I'm happy about it. But, I still, there's a piece of me that I spend a lot of time on my writing. I spend more time on my schoolwork and more time on my research stuff, but as a way to decompress and not slip into depression, I will always break out into some of my writing. I wrote a piece earlier tonight about what it feels like going back to college, like what it feels like going back to university at 46, which is what I did. And now we're 8 years down the road from that. And, I'm about done. And depending on the different schools that I had chosen to go to, I could have been a doctor by now, but I took the long route because I wanted as much licensing as I could get, because licensing, I feel, was a far more important thing, and it's holds you to a higher standard. But 8 years. And so at the beginning of it, I thought I should journal this and YouTube it, but I didn't. I didn't want to try to be some type of educational influencer with that material. Does that make sense? But I don't know. There we go. Sylvie Martin, beautiful lady that died way too young. Sam Neill never talks about this movie for some unknown reason. I think it's because he hated William Hurt. I think because he hated William Hurt because of William Hurt's relationship with Marlee Matlin in the 80s. A lot of people never forgave him because the rumor was that he was a brute. He was a jackass. He had mistreated her in so many ways, and they had argued and fought, and it had gotten physical, and a lot of people hated William Hurt after that, and Sam Neill being one of them. And apparently all that kind of escalated on the set of this movie. Yeah. Interesting, huh? Anyways, late night thoughts, just you and me, none of that stuff about whatever we've been talking about. And I'm going to try to move past it, but we'll find something new to talk about. All right, all the best. Be well. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you guys in the morning. Off to bed.